Hello, families. This is your host, Jake Ramsey. Just wanted to talk to you guys a little bit today about some of the things that we have going on right now. The end of the year is quickly approaching, and so we just wanted you to be aware of a few things. So intent to return is available, so make sure that if you do intend to come back to us next year, and we hope that you all decide to do so, go on to your data views and fill out the intent to return. Part of that process is going to be signing up for our training sessions for families around the new LMS that we've called EDIO. Hopefully you've seen the videos posted on YouTube. Tours with Tom video just came out, talking to you a little bit about EDIO and giving you some of that information so that you have it. We just wanted to make sure that you got registered for one of those trainings. And then along with that, also the parent satisfaction survey. We as a school highly value your thoughts, comments, concerns about, what we're doing as an organization and areas that we can improve for sure. I mean, no program is perfect, but we try to work really hard to make it as good as it possibly can be. So your input is highly valuable for us. So, like I said, fill out the intent to return, register for one of the family EDIO trainings, and fill out that parent satisfaction survey. We certainly appreciate all your support through this year and hopefully into next year. Looking for really big things on the horizon for us with this new EDIO program. I think that you all are going to be very, very impressed with it. And we look forward to sharing that with you and kind of growing in this experience. So with that, let's go ahead and get started with the podcast. Hello, everyone, and welcome to this episode of the We Are CCA podcast. I'm your host, Jake Ramsey, flying solo this week. Alan is busy with some other projects, so it's just going to be me. I actually have with me a guest who is going to talk with me a little bit about state testing and kind of giving you some tips and tricks on some things to do to help your students be in the best position possible to do as well as they possibly can on the state standardized test that we have coming up. So if you want to go ahead and introduce yourself, who you are and kind of what your role is here at CCA.
My name is Anna Griesacker, and I am a family involvement coordinator. I supervise the family mentors for the western regions of Pennsylvania. And
now, Anna, you do not currently have a student enrolled, correct?
No, she graduated.
So, but you did. And how long was your student with CCA?
She was with CCA for 8 years.
And you said she's graduated, right?
Correct.
And we were talking a little bit before the podcast. What's she doing now?
She is in college. She's up at Bloomsburg University, majoring in biology.
And have you talked to her about, if being in a cyber setting has really prepared her for college life, or does she feel like there were some shortcomings there, or?
Actually, no. She feels like she's adjusted a lot faster than some of her roommates and friends that she's met on campus. And several of her professors have asked what school she went to because she seemed more advanced than the other students.
Well, that's always good to hear. It's kind of encouraging to hear our students doing well. We like those success stories, so that's fun.
Definitely.
So obviously, we are kind of approaching the part of the year where state testing is upon us. And I know it's a big dark cloud that looms over top of everybody. But one of the things that I'd like to talk about is just kind of in your experience with your daughter, correct?
Yes.
With your daughter, she participated in the state testing program here?
Yes, for several years.
Several years, yes. And so what I want to talk today about is things that you found worked well to help prepare her for testing, not just from a academic standpoint, but also just from an emotional and kind of psychological standpoint, because they can be, it is a very stressful time of year. And I know a lot of students, feel a lot of pressure to perform as well as they can on these things. And so looking back and thinking about, where when state testing was approaching for you guys, what were some things that you did to help your daughter kind of academically prepare for the test?
There are sample tests available, so she would go ahead and do those. They are online at the Pennsylvania Department of Education site. Some of the teachers will send out a link to that information. But some of the things that I did at home was I didn't make a big deal about it. I knew if I made a big deal about it, and I was stressed out about it, it would make it more stressful for her. So I treated it as any other test or exam or anything that we were going to be doing with the school.
Yeah, you kind of don't want to project your emotions,
right.
And if you go crazy, they'll go nuts kind of thing.
Exactly.
Okay. So you said there's practice tests are on the Pennsylvania Department of Education's website?
Correct.
Okay. And did you find them helpful? I mean, did she feel that they did a good job of preparing her for it?
She did. Yeah. She would go through and, look through some of the tests, and she didn't do it, every day leading up to it, just maybe once a week or something like that. Again, like I said, don't make a big deal about it. And if she's got, all of her work done for the day and you need her working on something, just say, hey, can you, do some of those practice tests for a little bit?
What were those discussions like when you talked to her about the tests that were upcoming? Like, how did you approach that from a conversational perspective?
I explained to her that they were testing her to see what knowledge she was getting from her school, that they were basically testing to see what her school was teaching her to make sure she was getting all of the correct information. And that seemed to work for her. For some students, that might put more stress on them, that they're checking the school. But for my student, that seemed to work well.
And I know that you did work as a family mentor for a few years, correct?
Yes.
And so did you have these conversations with other parents? What were some of the approaches or what were some of the advice that you gave them?
Basically, they know their students better than anybody else does. So they know, parents know if telling them that they're testing the school is going to make it easier on the student, then tell them that. If you know it's going to make it harder on them, then you just, like I said, don't make a big deal about it, and it's just to see how much you know. And it's not a big deal. And Mom took these tests when she was a kid. Mm-hmm. It's not something that's going to go away. We've all had to do some sort of a standardized test.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the only part of that would be a little bit different now, I guess, is those Keystone Exams. Mm-hmm. For the high school students, and being course specific, but also at a certain point, if you graduate beyond a certain year, they are required for you to score proficient on in order to graduate. So there's some stakes there to it, and I think that kind of adds a different dimension. You didn't have to have that conversation with her because at the time they weren't, right?
For a while there, we thought they were going to be.
Okay,
and then that change came in. Later on.
Did you have that conversation with her and frame that in a certain way, or?
We did, and I just explained to her that with those Keystone tests that she would have to maybe prepare a little bit more, that she would, there's a little more on there to make sure I explained to make sure she's ready to graduate, to make sure she has all the information that she's going to need going off to college or the workforce or just society in general, that they, PDE wants to make sure she has all the information that she's going to need.
Yeah, and I mean, the system is set up where you are going to be in a position where you can satisfy the requirement for graduation, whether it be taking, you have to make the 2 attempts on the Keystones to score proficient, and then they do have that project-based assessment, whatever that's going to be, whatever that looks like, they will have that. So you'll have opportunities outside of like taking the bubble test,
right?
To meet your graduation criteria. But as of right now, and again, without a state testing rep in the room here with us, I don't want to give out what class that is or if you're graduating, beyond a certain date. But if you have questions about that, for all the families that are listening, if you do have questions about the Keystone Exams and kind of the criteria for graduation, please contact your assigned guidance counselor. I would recommend. And we also do have we have a state testing department that you can call and ask questions to. So, and they're always free to, they're always open to giving that information out to families. That's not something we keep a secret or anything like that. So, all right. So now we're tomorrow's the big day. Okay. Tomorrow's the big day. We're gonna go to the testing centers tomorrow, and we're gonna take the test. What are some things as a learning coach that you're thinking about and planning for the next day when it comes time for testing day? What are some things that you're like, I have to have this in place, I have to have this, we need to do this before we go to testing? What are some of the things? What's that checklist look like?
Definitely make sure they get to bed on time. Make sure that they have a really good night's sleep. I would say at least a couple of nights leading up to the tests. Make sure they're getting a really good night's sleep. Make sure they're eating a really healthy, good breakfast for them. Don't let them go off to the test and be worried about, when is lunch. Mm-hmm. The teachers will send out a list of the items that the students need. Go through that. Go through it with the student so they know that they have all of those items already packed in their bag ready to go. That alleviates a lot of stress for some of the kids, just to know that everything's in place for them. The day of testing, try to arrange your students' schedule so that they don't have other things or other activities or other coursework that they're going to be doing later that day. Make the testing their school day, and then go on a picnic lunch afterwards. Go see, the latest movie that they want to see, provided it's a good one. Mm-hmm. Do something fun that, takes their mind off of the stress, and something that they know that they can look forward to after the testing.
So kind of like find a balance. You're going to do this high, intense, mentally, kind of challenging test, and then we're going to go do something fun where you can kind of turn the brain off and allow you to do something, outside of that space where you have to be stressed out and things like that. Okay.
I'm not going to pick you up and we're going to go home and work on a portfolio.
Yeah, probably not the best idea. We'll save portfolios for another time. Probably not. Don't want to do those during the testing window. And you say you really don't focus on lessons or anything like that. I mean, going to testing is considered an academic day, right?
Correct.
As far as attendance goes. So, there's no expectation that that lessons are being completed during that time, right?
Right.
So, is it okay to leave them alone for a couple of days and focus on testing and not worry so much about lessons?
I mean, you can have your student work ahead so that the lessons are done, that weekend prior to the testing, or communicate with the teacher. I highly recommend communicating with the teachers at all times, but definitely during state testing, and let them know, my student's a little worried about the testing and I'm just going to make the rest of the day fun. We'll definitely catch up on our lessons the few days after testing and, possibly into the weekend. Yeah,
because the teachers are out on testing sites too. I mean, your teacher might be, you might be taking a test at somewhere in Dixon City, but your teacher, your assigned teacher's up in Erie, doing, mm-hmm. Running a testing site up there. So they might not be in the office at that time either, checking work and that kind of stuff. So I think that's a good, kind of a good point to, it's all right to kind of leave those things alone for a couple of days. And if you have some overdue work, a 24/7 access, so you can always, you got plenty of time to catch up if you do fall behind because of testing or whatever. So, so you said day of, good sleep, especially good sleep the night before. Get them to bed early. Get that rest. Try to get some good nutrition in you in the morning.
Yes.
To feed the brain, so to speak. Got to feed the mind.
Yes. And
then really just don't put a whole lot of pressure on the student to feel like this is the end all be all of everything, right?
Yeah, I mean, leave it up to them. If they want to talk about it and they come to you and they bring up some questions or some concerns that they have, but if they don't make a big deal about it and just take your cues from them.
That we just got Bing there. Sorry, that was my email. I apologize. Yeah, testing's always it's a stressor. I mean, it just is. And we know, I think one of the biggest things is, know where your testing center is. Have the directions or whatever printed out the night before, or find the location on your GPS the night before the test, so that you're not scrambling around trying to find it, the morning of. You're driving to the center and you have no idea where it is. I mean, you kind of do what you can to kind of check off all the boxes, so that all of those things are taken care of. You have your ducks in a row before you even leave the house for the testing. Have that map in front of you, just so that hey, I've got to go to this center. It's right next to the shopping complex where the Walmart is. Okay, I know where that's at. I'll be able to find it, no problem. That, because I know for me, if I'm driving somewhere and I've never been there before, I'm stressed till I pull into the parking lot, because I'm always like, am I going to the right spot? Am I getting off the right exit? And I'm sure that if I'm in that headspace and I'm taking my student to a testing, that they can probably sense that and feel that.
Yeah.
So that'd be one thing, as just from an outside perspective, somebody who doesn't have a student who's taking these tests yet. Kind of knowing where you're going, knowing what time you have to be there. Give yourself plenty of time to get there.
I was just going to say, aim to be early.
Yeah.
And that way you're less stressed also.
Yeah. Give yourself plenty of time. It's always better to be early than to be like pulling in at like the very last minute, trying to rush them in, or having them show up late, and then they're worried about being late. And then they walk into the room and all the students kind of look up at them like, "Ooh, this student showed up late." Try to be there as close to on time as you possibly can be. And now, when you were looking back at kind of when you were taking your student for testing, what can they expect as far as when they show up on site? What does typically the process look like?
Typically, the process is you're going to stand in line, you're going to sign your student in, and they're going to let the teachers will let the students know, which room they're going to be in, because there's several different rooms that the students can be in, depending upon the tests that they're taking. The teachers are very friendly, they're outgoing, they talk to the students, they, do their best to put the students at ease. We've always had really, really good experiences with the state testing. In fact, I've gone to pick my daughter up and she doesn't want to leave because she's having so much fun with the teachers. So it's not always a totally stressful situation. But like you were saying, when you're pulling in, and I was saying earlier, your kids take cues from you. So if you're stressed out about being late, they're going to pick up on the fact that you're stressed out, and they're going to think that's because of the testing. Mm-hmm. They're not going to put two and two together that maybe mom's stressed because we're running late. Yeah. So that, that's another thing too. But
and the teachers kind of welcome the students in, and then you as the learning coach have what options at that point?
You can stay. Sometimes there's a room for you to sit in. Sometimes it's just like a lobby area if you feel more comfortable staying. Most parents, from what I've seen throughout the years, I know the first year I sat and stayed, and I think I was one of a handful. Mm-hmm. And then from then on, it was, she was like, "I got this, Mom." And, I went home, or I went, shopping at the store nearby, or, ran some errands that needed to be done. The teachers will let you know. They'll give you a phone call and let you know when your student's ready to be picked up.
Okay. Now, just to kind of wrap it up, the post-testing conversation. So your student goes in, takes the test, they're done with the test, they come out, you gather your things, you go out to the car. What is that conversation like on the way home?
Typically my daughter just opened up and would talk on her own, in which case I just listened. It was that, my job at that point was to listen to how things went. If she didn't open up, maybe that first year, I said, "Hey, how did everything go?" And then I just took my cues from her if she wanted to talk about it. And typically it was about how fun the teachers were, is what she talked about. Okay. It had nothing to do with the testing.
Yeah. So, 'cause I know exactly how that conversation would go with my son. I would pick him up and, "Hey, buddy, how was testing today?" "Fine."
Right.
"Well, what was on the test?" Stuff. Like, all right, a little more and I don't know that you want to press in that situation. Probably just better me as a parent, I want to know, like, how it all went, because you're And nervous. I guess as a parent, you want your kid to do as well as they can on it, but
Right.
you start putting, because you still have a couple days after that of testing it, because I think the testing window is like two or 3 days. So you don't want to put too much pressure on them as they leave. Maybe just kind of, hey, how did it go? Do you think you did pretty well? What stuff did you know? What stuff did you struggle with? Hey, I'm proud of you, that kind of stuff. That's
right.
typically how the conversation would go, you think?
Yep.
Okay.
Great job.
All right. Well, hey, thanks for coming in and agreeing to do this. And I think it's important for, our CCA community to know that, during this stressful time, there's a lot of support in place for you, whether it be your family mentor who's might be going through the same things you are with getting your kids to and from testing.
Mm-hmm.
It could be, your teachers and staff who are also, kind of running around, covering the testing centers and stuff like that. The teachers and administration that are on staff for the testing are all avenues of support. So if you're feeling overwhelmed, if you're feeling like your head's about to explode with everything that's going on with state testing, utilize those supports, take advantage of them, and really just try to keep your student in the best space as far as least amount of stress as possible. So I appreciate you coming in and doing the episode. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
All right, have a good one. If you'd like to learn more about how best to prepare your students for state testing, please visit our blog at www.ccaeducate.me. And remember, we are CCA.